that's not clickbait. I want you guys to compare the opening footage for this entry and the footage that I took for this entry 6 weeks ago. So that was the last time I've seen my lowest recording of 160.8. So that was going to be 6 weeks ago as of tomorrow. Today is Sunday as I'm recording this. So, geez, pretty insane. But what I do want you to notice is look at the running average, right? So even though I did hit a low back in early September that I've yet to surpass since, and here I am running out of October. If you look at the running average, there's a 1.5-ish pound difference between what my running average was then and what my running average is now. I've mentioned this before, but worth mentioning again. The app is called Happy Scale. It just does a really good job in, helping you not miss the forest for that damn tree that just seems to captivate all of us, especially when we're in the middle of a fat loss phase with a deadline, especially when the deadline is a competition. So as you can see, I hit that low weigh-in of 160.8, but the numbers surrounding it, again, it's one of the reasons that it was probably a weird outlier weigh-in for a number of different reasons. So what you have to take into consideration actually is all the stuff that's going around that number. So same thing when you get a high weigh-in and often they come up when you've been working your butt off, you just grinded through this really, really hard day, you made it happen, you stuck to your diet, and you're like, that scale is going to show me just how good I did yesterday. You get on the scale and you're like, wow, you think you're funny, right? So again, we can't be distracted by these weird outlier weigh-ins. So when I am reading my athletes' data, actually, I usually remove the low weigh-in for the week and the high weigh-in for the week, and these are just some of the tools I use. However, I do encourage them to get this Happy Scale app because it gives you a better idea of what is actually going on, where things are heading. And despite the fact that I've only lost 1.5 pounds in about 6 weeks now, the changes are quite drastic when you compare that video that I linked. Link will be in the description. Maybe I can make it do that fancy thing up here. I don't know, I'm kind of still not all the way super handy with this YouTube thing, but I'm getting better. And see the difference. That's 1.5 pounds. Now, other things to take into consideration between what was going on then and now that can also impact your body weight. For sure, I was probably eating foods that were I'm playing the volumetrics game a little bit more now. Back then, I was still drinking my calories, quite a bit, especially for me. If I don't have to stop and chew and I can continue to work, I do take time to eat, and I really, really appreciate what it is that I am eating, but sometimes my schedule doesn't permit for that. So it's nice to have just, this huge jug of coconut juice or pomegranate juice and just be able to throw that thing down and not have it slow me down as I try to make the day's deadlines. So back then I was definitely drinking a lot more of my calories, so that can be one thing. And now, not that I'm going ham with the volumetrics, I still think it's what most people would consider honestly wasting calories, or it's just pretty normal foods. I am eating more solid foods, and that food bulk is definitely going to add weight on you, especially as you spend more and more time eating less food. Here's the thing, your GI tract does atrophy. So it atrophies and you're just not as regular. And you're not as regular, and maybe you're playing the volumetrics game a little bit more, trying to get, as many calories as possible. You shouldn't play it to super far extremes, but you are being a little bit more mindful. It's just little things like, hey, maybe you go from bananas to strawberries, things like that, from protein powders to like, okay, I'm eating like these like solid chunks of protein now, right? So again, these things will impact the diet. So again, the scale at the very end, it's a wonderful device, but it has its limitations. The limitation is that, hey, it weighs everything you're composed of. And this is why you have to collect a lot of data points to get a better idea of what is going on. Eventually, the scale will kind of let you know. But also, this is why, above anything else, like what you see matters. And what you feel matters too. And the whole time between now and then, oh boy, I can tell you, yeah, I've been on a deficit. Like I can definitely feel the fact that many times over the course of most days, I do feel, it's that sensation that if you have enough experience dieting, you know that, okay, right now it's been long enough in between meals that I do feel that my body's like tapping into stores that it much rather not tap into, but this dude wants to bodybuild, right? So that's how things are going. So I'm not panicked. I think the main thing that I want to drive here, especially I think for the competitive bodybuilders, especially as you get closer to your stage shape, the scale matters a lot less. And I think sometimes because we get happy feet, we start adjusting things that need not be adjusted. And what this does is that's just more stress for your body to deal with. It's already a very stressful situation as is, like to push your body this far. So that can definitely impact the final product, not just in like how much muscle you're able to maintain, but like, you can push a body to the point where yeah, it's losing fat, but also it's just very erratic and inconsistent. And that's going to make it harder to like peak you. It's going to make it harder to decipher like what is going on with like the water retention that you might be combating at this point, because maybe you've pushed harder than you needed to get to where you wanted to go. So especially for competitive physique athletes, I would say, especially in those later stages, especially in that last third, that last quarter of a contest prep, hey, like have this guide you more than anything, and this being these things. And then for just the casual bodybuilders, the recreational bodybuilders, same thing goes. Give yourself more time to marinate on a certain combination of like calories and cardio before you make any adjustments. I'd say for most people, honestly, like sit on things for like 3 to 4 weeks. And sometimes, like despite what the scale might be saying, if what you see in the mirror is like clear-cut improvement, then for reasons that I just described, like this is why it might be happening. This is why this might be happening right now. In my specific circumstance, you might be going through something similar. So again, even sleep and awake times. There's just so many things that like impact your body weight. Sleep and awake times, when you were having your last meal, compared to maybe a few weeks ago, a lot of things. So again, hopefully you can take something from this. But at the end, I think regardless if you are competing or if you're just trying to get like lean for the funsies, it's nice to give yourself more time than you need so that you can sit back and save yourself a lot of moves, a lot of adjustments that you probably don't need to apply, which at the end is going to make the final outcome that much better. And it's also going to make the process a whole lot healthier. I really do think that post this contest prep, I'll probably be done with the majority of my recovery period, like after 2 weeks. Also, like, I'm not promising anything, but I'm going to speak with some people who might be able to help me in regards to, perhaps getting, maybe, and this is a big maybe because I hate needles, getting some blood work and seeing what I look like towards the end of the prep, and then what I look like, a month later, something like that. I think it'd be good for like my own records, and I think for you guys it'd be really neat and interesting to see what is going on there as well. So yeah, that's what I got for you guys. Let's go with the training footage, because that is still the best part of my day. And even though like can perform the way I was able to perform and push a few months ago, it's still a whole lot of fun, and I still feel like I'm in complete control when it comes to training. But more on that as we roll this footage. All right, so leg extensions, like for me, are always a good way for me to decipher how close I am to looking the way I want to, just because I know what they look like during my these are all preps where I actually got lean. 2008 prep, 2011, 2014, 2017. So I know what that should look like. Like, it's sometimes, honestly, on some really rough days, you're just there doing your thing, and you see all the new details that you earned since the last week. And that's honestly what's like pushing you. And it's one of the reasons that, as I mentioned before, I mentioned this on Instagram a few weeks back, that I wanted to, for a minute there, toy around with the, like, hey, let's just do gray sweatsuits like James Harrison, and like, let's play that game and keep it hidden, and just really be about, like, getting the business taken care of, like when I'm in the gym. But man, like, honestly, sometimes seeing, because muscle looks so different once, like, you're training it, it's what keeps me going. It's what keeps me going. It's like, okay, like, this is working. Like, you're looking better than last week. So for me, it, like, really helps me up here. For some people, it can be like a total mindfuck, but for me, seeing new details come up definitely help brighten up the mood just a little bit. So pendulum is out, I think, structurally, on my knees, on my hips, more so my lower back. It was just starting to get, I wouldn't say dangerous, but it didn't feel as secure as this movement. So it's going to take twice as long, but I am doing 4 sets of this, which ends up being 8 sets, right? Because, right, unilateral movements, and 1 set of pendulum, because I do want to get back to that once prep is over. I really do love that movement. But right now we're doing this split squat variation. The wedges absolutely help maximize this. I still haven't fully found my groove, so you're going to see, just find some landmark in the background. I know the camera is moving, but find some landmark in the background. You can see, or how about this, my knee relative to my toe. On some of these reps, like, I'm going much further forward than others, so I still have to grease the groove a little bit. But once I do, man, this is, I want to do unilateral leg workout like year round now. But a lot of it is, again, like, these wedges help so that I don't have to use these super massive loads, so that I can avoid any excess hip flexion as I get into my squat patterns. So, like, basically what I'm aiming for here is, like, I guess like my taint. I'm trying to place that behind that foot, and I'm trying to stay super upright, and it feels kind of like a pendulum itself. So that's what I'm trying to do, to make sure that that knee goes as forward as possible, that I don't, try to, like, flex at the hips and improvise that way. But yeah, the wedges obviously make this a lot easier, and also they make it so that I don't have to use a whole lot of load. You don't need these wedges in particular. I got these because I love Prime stuff. I love the quality. Like, these are definitely, like, one-time purchases. Amazon, I can't vouch for those products, but there's quite a selection there. And they're probably not as heavy as these. Like, these, I just have to leave in the car, and then when I'm ready to use them, I go out and bring them in. We'll see how that works out in the winter. Once it actually starts to snow out here, which it's coming, man. Winter is coming. So yeah, this has been one adjustment I've had to make. But again, I'd say, honestly, like, the stimulus relative to the pendulum squat and our pendulum, I mean, it's a pretty good pendulum squat, at least relative to the model pendulum squat that I have. I'd say these are a tad bit better, just from a time investment perspective. Yeah, this just takes a little bit longer than I'd like. I don't think I'm going to add load on this movement, even though it's new, and usually that does warrant that. Simply because every rep does not look the same. Like, some of them, again, like my knee travels forward a little bit more than other reps. So I still haven't fully figured it out yet. So I'll probably just keep it to, I have a 45 on each side. And I'll just probably keep it to that for the remainder of this prep. Everything is flying. Everything feels amazing. I have no complaints in regards to training. Excuse Haley. That's my dog. It's never been like this before. I think in the past, I was too stuck up on keeping certain loads at a certain place, but that's not how it works, man. What ends up happening, and we've discussed this before, is that you start to change your technique, and okay, maybe the load's the same, but you're not applying the same stimulus that you were applying to the muscle groups you are targeting, because you insist on staying at this load, because again, I guess you're immune to physics, right? Again, that's why they have weight classes in powerlifting, because there is going to be a difference between lifters that lift at 93 kilos versus lifters who lift at 105 kilos. That's why they have weight classes. And when it comes to your situation, when you are going through a pretty gnarly fat loss phase, it's something you do have to take into consideration. Okay, this one right here, I think I fixed it here. So my last rep on the previous set, I started to arch a little bit. I want to be the shape of the bench. So if anything, I try to keep a smidge of tension here in my upper abs. And there's, I think, a little bit of that on this one, but better than the set before. These are 90-pound dumbbells, so a little bit lower than I usually would. Again, I'm kind of dealing with an elbow that's being a little knotty. It's very manageable. We're able to work through it and be smart. I'm just leaving that in. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry, guys. Give me a break. It's
one.
I just feel like I'm under control. Like I am definitely training responsibly. I think for the first time ever. I've known of a lot of vets that would talk about doing it this way, but I just wasn't entirely sold on it. Simply because, when it comes to muscle retention, that's not my biggest gift. That's not my biggest gift. When it comes to muscle retention, I lose fat quite efficiently, but my body will give everything away. So it was hard for me to buy into that. But this year, I think because I do have a little bit more muscle relative to previous years, I'm like, okay, let me give this a try. And a lot of good talks with myself when I was in a more objective place mentally. So I'm sticking to my guns. And again, like Lee Haney would say, right? It's like I'm there to stimulate, not annihilate. Because what I'm doing right now already, in a way, is like annihilating my body, right? So don't make it worse. Food, calories food is relatively the same. I added some cardio. So I got 2 sessions at 30 minutes and one big 60-minute session, but this one's more to set up some of the things that I want to do in the off season when it comes to just my general cardiovascular health. So it's a long 60 minutes. It's a long session, but it's also it's super slow. It's super slow. And I did my first one this past weekend and yesterday, and it was amazing. Like it was very, very relaxing. For the other ones, I let myself listen to podcasts and things like that. But for this one, it was just all quiet, and man, that was a good time. Just a lot of good time up here with myself. Sometimes generating ideas in regards to things and content that I want to create for you guys, but just also a lot of personal things, like a lot of reflecting on how the past week went, what I can do better, and not just in regards to like bodybuilding, but I'm human too, man. Like prep impacts me like anyone else. So, it's like, where have I missed my mark when it comes to other responsibilities that, sometimes this can distract you from a little bit. So, hey, generally I'm doing well. 2 weeks out, I have this week of digging, and then I have my peak week, and then 2 more shows, and the season ends November 19th. So we're getting close to the end, y'all. Thank you for rocking with me.